All right, Nicole, thank you for coming on the show. I'm so excited to drop in with you and hear a little bit more about you, what you do, how you might be able to help people in this crazy world that we live.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you, Lily. I really appreciate all you're bringing to the world. And like I was just saying a moment ago, I feel like we complement each other well. So this should be a nice conversation
Yeah,
today.
100%, 100%. So what I love about this show is it's really just about gaining different perspectives. What I've learned through my journey is I could read all the books, I could listen to all the podcasts and um try to incorporate, rules or different people's advices into my life. And kind of, in that process, I lost myself for a while.
Mm.
And I'm so curious about you because there's just so many things I feel like that you do and that you're really, really good at. And I will open this up. I know we talked about it earlier, but I want to open this up, not like about who you are, but I'm like, why are you here? I want to know, like, why are you here doing this amazing work with somatics, with empaths, with HSPs, highly sensitive people? Why this? Why were you called to
Mm.
this work and helping people?
Thank you. And thank you for seeing me in my path. I do bring a lot of schools of thought and
Mm,
training and experience. But yeah, why am I here? I like when you ask yourself why 7 times, I go back to um, a period in my teenage years where I think moods and um, just like, I guess, general pain kind of like took over my life, and
mm,
I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have tools available, like in my family system and even school system at that time, and just consciously moving my body in in the privacy of my bedroom to music I liked. And by consciously, I just mean like however my impulse moved me. I felt more connected to a quieter place within me where the thoughts had more space between them, the
mm,
breath was deeper, the feelings were there, but they weren't overwhelming me. And so, like, at some point during that age is when all of my interest in everything healing arts, therapeutic
mm,
arts really began. I was like, I can't be the only one who feels this way. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I just really love helping other high achieving women who feel exactly like you said, maybe burned out on working really hard on themselves as well,
mm,
like
mm,
doing all of the mindset stuff and following all the rules and doing all the protocols and committing to this plan and that plan and this. And I love just helping them resurrect their own energy and
mm,
yeah, and almost like allow a sort of gradual reinvention from the inside out, um, which puts them more in touch with their truth. And it's generally multimodality because I find that at certain times in a woman's lifespan or life, even monthly life cycles, some of the tools and schools of thought I use are more useful than others.
mm,
Sometimes you need like a lot of stillness and space and um, looking inward, like more from the somatics side of things. And then other times when you might feel like you're just repeating the same cycles over and over, some things like breath work and more active meditations or moving meditations like
mhm,
conscious dance can be really helpful to, embody that shift
mm.
and help you co-create that. So I hope I circled back to the original
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. I love this, it sounds like that this kind of this way of being or way of teaching and doing this work for you kind of came about with exploration within yourself, which is like one of my biggest, it's my biggest things. And I'm just so curious, and you don't have to answer this, but it just came up about because, okay, the reason I'm asking this is because, like I have I have a big problem with, everything on Instagram about like conscious dance or about intimacy or about sexuality, and the way that um maybe the way that it's taught, but also about how it's supposed to fix somebody, I guess, quote unquote. I don't know. I don't even know like what I'm thinking about. But I think the reason that this question came up for me is because, and this happened with me through my healing, is that I would see people on Instagram or whatever, on Facebook or whatever it is, and they're teachers and they're trying to teach me how to do something, but it didn't feel right within myself. And so I felt like that I was doing something wrong, or that I was inherently bad or something like that. Like there were deeper meanings about like this relationship I think with these people on Instagram. So I'm just curious about, like, with your story, when you said that you were kind of like dancing one day and then you realized that this was actually something for you. Like it was deeper than just dancing, or deeper than being something on the, like, just on the face of things. Does that make sense? Like what was that, shift? Like how did you realize that that modality was something that like could actually be a healing opportunity for you, and maybe and eventually for other people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally see and hear what you're saying. I think, Western culture is so extractive. So a lot of the
Mm,
things that end up going on social media is, someone who has great intentions and maybe has a personal connection to their practices, but then
mm,
they're trying to fit it all into like a 15-second snippet of like 5 things you could do
mm.
to,
That's a great
and
point.
is that really the most trauma informed, trauma sensitive way to
Mm,
facilitate movement practices? I don't think so. So yeah, I've actually been hesitant myself. So many people are like, can't you put like little things of the stuff you do at our classes and workshops and retreats? And I'm like, "Ah," I try to
yeah.
find my way through it. But I guess your last question there around what made me like, really believe that this is something that could help a lot of others as well. Um, I think my personal exploration, just feeling, I didn't know these words around regulating the nervous system,
Mm,
um, but the sense of peace and connection to self I felt from moving just reassured me that it was for me for now,
yeah.
and maybe eventually I would find schools of thought where I could also be like trained or certified in it.
Mhm.
And I have to say, like, mm, my first few Kundalini classes, I had I had both experiences you're talking about where it felt very that particular teacher. I went to a few classes, but very
Mhm.
prescriptive and like you
Mhm.
have to do it this way or it won't
Mhm.
work. And at the same time, I felt that joyous, like energy rising that I felt when I would do my own exploration, as well as that deep peace that came after. So I just kind of hung in through the through the classes and through the trainings, and I found my own way, even post certification, to facilitate that gives room for people's lived experience in their body and like what does and doesn't feel like a yes for them in that moment, and giving them
Mm.
permission to make this your own. And yeah, so I mean that's my favorite part of like a true kind of conscious dance experience, is that it's everyone's really just doing their own thing, and get to make them feel as comfortable as they can in that moment, like expressing themselves around others
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So I really love like leading people through that journey.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I could like I was gonna say I can imagine, but no, I know based off my experience how healing that is to be witnessed um for expression. I
Mhm.
don't do a lot in my practice. I don't do a lot of the body work, but I definitely do a lot of the emotional work, and it's the same premise, I
Yeah,
think, right?
yeah, yeah. I think that I was, as I was coming on and just remembering how similar we are, and I was like, how much percentage do I really do the you know, words to emotions work and how much percentage of my work
Mhm.
is nonverbal to
Mhm.
emotions. And I have to say, I think I'm like 66% nonverbal, different techniques that are, yeah, just more consciousness, energy based, movement based, breath work based. But then I think it's super important that that emotional piece is there as well to process,
Mhm.
because so many times in these communities where there's conscious dance or energy healing or breath work, whatever, there is no integration of like thoughts and feelings, and it could just get really
Yeah.
messy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally can get messy. And I think what just came to me is that I think and let me know what you think about this, but I think the practice or the modality becomes the override
Mhm.
sometimes. I
Mhm.
think that that's where the disconnect is that, oh, I'm doing this thing, I should have this result, I'm doing it perfectly. Am I doing this right? And if we're not careful, like then that becomes an overriding feature and like who we are and the healing that we need. At least this is from my perspective. I'd love to hear what you think, but like if from the deeper healing that we need to do, um
Right.
it becomes an override for that.
Yeah, it gets bypassed a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I was listening to one of your episodes about parts work.
Hmm.
It's almost like then the modality becomes like yet another identity or like a should or a belief
Right.
system that
Right.
it's like, that's like counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think any practitioner, student of healing therapeutic lineages,
Hmm.
equal parts discernment and surrender always, and just really make it your own. That's my company or my creation
Hmm.
of all of these different pieces together is called Power Within Healing,
Hmm.
because I do really, coming from a background of being an overachieving, people pleasing perfectionist, professional dancer was really my first career. I just felt like I gave away so much of myself and what I was feeling in the moment, and just overrode. Is that the
Yeah.
past tense?
Yeah.
What was actually happening there. So I really want to empower people to have their own experience, and make it authentically theirs
Hmm.
and tap into what is particularly healing about this particular class, exercise, etc.
Hmm. I love that. I love it. Let's transition into that perfectionist piece.
Sure.
Because girl, ooh, man, to say that I've gotten, I have a lot more compassion than I do perfectionism, obviously, these days. Like I give myself, I think, 80/20, 80% compassion and 20% of the, other stuff. But um I'm sure based off your experience and what you just said about, being a professional dancer, that was like such a nightmare. Um, so what do you find about like your experience about perfectionism, the women that you work with about perfectionism? Like what do you see most, I guess, in this conversation about high achieving perfectionism? You're
Hmm.
like, oh, that's a big question, Lily.
Yeah. No,
As you're feeling your
thank
heart.
you, thank you for bringing her in.
Mm,
I want to give like so much love and validation for that piece, and for folks who are there, um, because all of your hard work and hypervigilance and like all these things that may be in imbalance are causing you some pain as well. Like
mhm.
to some level it has also helped, so don't villainize the part too much as well. But yeah, definitely with dance there's just like perfectionism everywhere in how you look, how you perform in the moment. Every movement is repeatedly nuanced until it's
Mhm.
right. And so that's the common thing I see, when my people come to their first session or class with me is, a focus on getting it right,
Mm,
or looking for my approval in their process.
mhm.
And yeah, I want folks to, as comfortably as you can, all of everything that's trauma sensitive and trauma informed, I do believe has an element of titration and slow and steady. I think that's
Mhm.
the only way that it can be sustainable.
Mhm.
So even that permission and allowance and acceptance of the part of you that's wanting to do it right, or is seeking the validation, or wants to give up if you don't get the validation or whatever, like, you know, as much of a dose of self-love and compassion you can have for yourself on day one, it will exponentially grow if you practice that.
Mhm.
So that on day 601, it just becomes so much a part of who you are now.
Yeah,
um
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. And it is such a thing, it's you're right. I love what actually, let's explain titration.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you mind?
I don't mind. Titration to me is similar to um like how averse or hard it was for me to jump into freezing cold pools at the beginning of summer.
Mhm.
I know some people just like love that rush, but
Mhm.
I'd fear it. It felt too overwhelming and consuming. So titration is the idea that like first I would just stick my pinky in the pool,
Mhm.
and then I would get, okay, maybe my whole foot, 2 feet, take a break, wait a little while, let the sun hit me. Okay, both legs, and then eventually, people could say, "Oh, it'd just be easier if you jump in at once," but I just didn't. That didn't resonate with me. So,
Not your thing.
with energy work, it's kind of similar, um, or therapy in general, right? Like if your first therapy session, you go right into your deepest, darkest secrets and trauma, it's gonna leave you worse off than when you went in. So
Mhm.
it's about just allowing yourself to touch the edges of the activation, which is,
Mhm.
you know, activation is a um, psychological term for um, like a trigger maybe arising.
Mhm.
And so just touching the edges of the activation and then backing away, giving yourself some space and room to like come back to the present moment.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it can look very different, but for my classes and sessions as well, I definitely recommend that folks start with, can we just do this for 30 seconds, while we're here
Mhm.
together?
Mhm.
Um, and then when the first times you're practicing on your own, maybe just committing to like a 3-minute thing.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to do a full Kriya and meditation every single day for an hour and a half right away.
Mhm.
I think that then it gives also folks little tastes of the peace and the integration, as well as like just that, okay, that was a success. Like I was
Mhm.
able to do that. And then to go deeper and then begin again, allow yourself to begin the process again and again of
I love
titration.
that. I love that. And thank you for that explanation, because I think it's important, because I think, especially in this culture that we're in, like New Year's resolutions, this culture of, quick results, or even this culture of doing it alone, this individualism type of
Right.
thing, is that, like, just like what you said about earlier, is I meant to speak up but I didn't, but just what I think about anyone that asks me, like, well, how do I, I'm in dating, right, in relationships, so
Mm-hmm.
how do I do this, Lily? And I always say, like, when I go, I'm a guest on podcasts, I always say, you just heal. There's no when you're talking about Instagram, when people just want you to post, like, post me a solution on Instagram, please. Sadly, like, for me, like, that's not in line with my values and my integrity, because I know that the process really is electing to be in a healing container, like yours or like mine. um so that was that, and then I had something else in there too about the titration piece, is that, like this culture of like quick results and all that stuff, it's really, it doesn't work like that. Like that's how, like healing in some ways and like listening to our intuition, becoming who we are, being authentic, it's almost a skill in a way, in the way that I see it.
Mhm.
And it takes time. It doesn't, it takes time and repetition over a period of time, with support always helps, because you have someone to like, to see you and reflect and all that stuff. But that piece of titration is so valuable, I think, because to expect something quickly without, yeah,
Without any trigger or
yeah,
activation.
or like I think like people that overshare, for example, which like I raise my hand to that, right? Like it's as an attempt to connect, as attempt to, to be expressed and find connection with other people. It's like
Mhm.
that's not really, like that's not really safe to parts of us most of the time, at least for me. Like I'll speak for
Yeah.
myself, but does that make sense?
Absolutely. And sometimes on that note can be like a trauma response of like over
Exactly.
explaining to be understood from being in, yeah, traumatic or abusive dynamics. Totally. Yes. And I just want to sink into this can't do it alone piece
Mm,
too. Even
mhm,
even in the titration, I think just giving people permission to try it slowly and have wins, and then that they're not here alone, even though I have a virtual community and I have some things that happen in person. Having that space in groups
mhm,
is so it's so strengthening because it shows you the edges of your own like resistance to being
mhm,
vulnerable, and also how you could find that kind of middle space where you have just the right amount of courage and strength to share and to be seen and to be heard, and then to just like let it rest there and
mhm,
let the feelings flow, and like you feel that level of activation rising, and then like you're there with others and they're
mhm,
holding space for you, and it moves through, and the different meditations and breath work I do like helps that process too. We do like contemplations before it and
mhm.
conversation after too. But yeah, to do it all alone by yourself is just like it's going to drive up your inner perfectionist as well.
It sure does. And yeah, and it does work for a while, 'cause speaking from experience, like
Quick results, yeah.
doing it alone does work for a period of time. And most people, even through my journey and my experience, I definitely hit a wall. I definitely like didn't understand what I was doing wrong, because I think the thing for me was that like I was conscious enough where I knew that what I was doing didn't feel right, and I knew what I had to do, but then I couldn't either do the things that I was supposed to do, or like my behaviors didn't change, or that my mindset didn't change or whatever. But yeah, it's probably very hard, just like it is with me. It's probably very hard with you to like to describe people exactly what you do. I'm like, I just help people heal. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely lots of conversations with folks who put things into words to just
Yeah,
really they're like after doing this so many years now, I'm on my 11th or 12th year. And of course,
amazing.
different things have come in and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but Power Within Healing has stayed the same. The place that folks are in is generally like similar. And at this point, it's just been taking testimonials from experiences that
Mm-hmm.
folks have had in my programs and retreats. And it's like, that is what's happening. But yes, it can be hard to describe. But also, like, I'm just so enamored with the stance that you've taken or the position that you're in helping people specifically in the vulnerability of dating and relationships, because I do have clients that have, found love, fallen in love. I can't attribute it to like a process or a method that I have put in place. Like the energy healing stuff does its own magic and I take no
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for that.
I
But
bet.
yeah, I mean, helping people through that process of which I remember in my own with my husband, which felt like the first secure attachment experience I was gifted to try to match and resonate, earn my own secure attachment. Yeah, just like so many levels of activation, and then like, okay, this is a moment where I self-regulate and I don't,
Mm,
put this on him. But then here is a moment where something's happening between us. Something's getting like worked out here for both of us. And like, how do I stay present and not run away? And like,
mm,
I just love that
mm.
that's your focus of what you do. So thank you
Thank
for doing
you.
that work.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you for seeing me. I mean, I always joke that, dating is like trigger town. So I guess I just choose the
You
challenges.
chose to take
Let's
a bus to
go.
Trigger Town. Yeah.
Oh, you're amazing. I love
Oh,
you have such you have such a healing presence, for me, and I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. And I'll have to check out, I'm intrigued about checking out some of your stuff, like, getting in some of your programs, because I
sure.
can definitely say for me, the movement has not been a huge piece, I think, of my healing, but I'm definitely open. Like that, again, like we're talking about titration, for myself, like,
Right.
dipping my toe in the water. I think I have tried, I think part of my journey, which is that part about like, it just, some of it, a lot of the teaching out there, I think just feels inauthentic, I think, to my highest self. And I think
Mhm.
that is probably what's kept me from testing it out for myself, if I'm completely real.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, then I'm the kind of teacher for you because I've always I've always been rebellious to, I've been equal parts rebellious to what I'm being taught to teach,
mhm,
or certified to teach. But it's also like that's healthy discernment. I was like, this has to
mhm,
be authentic for me to pass on. Otherwise, yeah, the vibration of what I'm sharing won't help as
mhm.
deeply.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
You're amazing, Nicole.
Thank you
What
so
are
much.
you working on? Thank you. What are you working on? What's coming up? You have a program coming up, correct?
I do. I do. It's called Forward Momentum
Mm,
and specifically designed for, again, those high achieving women who are looking to reclaim their energy, specifically resurrect their soul work, maybe like through a series of decisions. Their
mm,
career path is not quite aligned with like what they thought they'd be doing or feel destined to be doing. It helps them reinvent themselves from the inside out without wasting any more time on the surface level,
mm,
really rigid, sort of mindset heavy healing work that's not moving the needle for them.
mm,
And it is a 4-month immersion, a multimodality alchemical approach of Kundalini, breathwork, somatic healing. And it supports them to make deep and lasting internal shifts that help them go from overgiving on autopilot to finally putting yourself and your purpose work first.
I love that.
Um, yeah, so that's gonna kick off if this is coming out during the retreat, beginning of April.
Mhm.
It should be kicking off 4 to 6 weeks from now.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, I'd love to give them a special discount code from you, Lily, Lilli.
Hmm.
And yeah, let's say that it'll take 444 off of the cost of the program.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll put all that information in the show notes too.
Thank you.
Ooh, sounds so juicy.
Yeah. It's
Where
like the personal, feels like the personal phase of something that I hope to then impart as a process for others to facilitate themselves as teachers and
Beautiful.
healers. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. That's amazing. Love spreading the healing and the love. Where can people find you, Nicole?
Most frequently on the daily Instagram at Nicole Smith Levay, spelled just like my name. I'm on Facebook the same way. And yeah, feel free anytime, check out my website, thepowerwithinhealing.com.
Mm,
You'll see my virtual studio on there, Soul Fitness Society, and you can get all my contact info on there as well.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming on the show. You're amazing.
Oh, so are
You're such
you.
a healing presence for me, so I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we did this. You're
Yes,
incredible too, and keep doing this work because I really feel relationships are the highest form of consciousness. So,
absolutely.
yes.
Trigger town, baby. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank